Hi everyone, welcome back. Blade Runner 2049. Is it the best sequel ever made? Blade Runner is definitely a great film and should definitely be near the top of the list of best films ever, but as a sequel it is absolutely mind-blowing. Look at this film purely as a sequel, it's nearly perfection. This is the sequel to the 1982 Ridley Scott film Blade Runner starring Harrison Ford, and you could say it's really the sequel to the 2007 Final Cut release, which is the only version Ridley Scott had total control over. Is this the best sequel ever made? Looking at it from another perspective, what makes a sequel bad? There are literally hundreds of lists of the worst sequels ever made, and these bad sequels usually have one thing in common. They simply cash in on the original success without bringing anything new and are worse copies of the original. A very profitable film is made, immediately it's copied because if a formula works, why change it? For example, with Jaws, the second sequel was nearly as good as the original, but it just became a case of too much of a good thing and the sequels just got ridiculous. Blade Runner is definitely not in this category. Why? Well, the original, released in 1982, lost a lot of money at the box office. It then had a cult following on video and DVD right up to today and is loved by most critics. The company which made Blade Runner 2049 were definitely looking to make a profit. No one is looking to lose money on a film, but this was not a case of churning out a sequel just to cash in. Blade Runner 2049 did also lose money, just like the original. The main reason it wasn't as popular as predicted was its length of 163 minutes, which even Ridley Scott, the director of the original, has pointed out as a flaw. For someone who never watched the original, it could be too long, with too many references to the original and too many characters which are not necessary for the plot, as well as details regarding the Blade Runner universe, which will be understood by people who watched the original, but not so much by people who didn't. But all this just makes it a better film for fans of the original. There are so many references to the original, new characters in the world, the visual aspects, the weather, the fight scenes between replicants which we never really experienced in the original. All of this lets the fan of the original dive in deeper into the Blade Runner universe. For example, the ending. The ending scene is a mirror image of the ending of the original. Joe, a rogue replicant, saves Deckard's life just like Roy Batty did. Roy dies in the rain and Joe in the snow. Deckard continues his life with Rachel in the original and with his daughter in the sequel. One of the things which makes a sequel great is a continuation of a great story. The sequel should make you feel that you're watching a continuation of the original story, not simply a repeat or copy and paste. This is where Blade Runner is a masterpiece. Both the original and Blade Runner 2049 have the same writer, Hampton Fancher. His script for the original was amazing, and the way he continued the story in the sequel is just as good. I find it fascinating that Hampton Fancher has maintained in interviews that Deckard is human, and Ridley Scott, the director of the original, insists he is a replicant. 2049 doesn't give any new clues but does lean towards replicant a little bit. If you want to watch a video about that, you'll find a link in the comments. In Blade Runner 2049, the story from the original continues 30 years on with many new twists. We follow the story of another Blade Runner, Kay or Joe. Just like Deckard in the original, he hunts rogue replicants who shouldn't be on Earth, in this case models older than himself. Joe has the same fears, hopes and emotions as the replicants in the original. Like all replicants, he's striving to be human, because apart from the way they're born, replicants are human. The replicant rebellion leader Fraser tells him to kill Deckard, so he doesn't lead Wallace to his daughter and the rebellion group. She says the most human thing to do is to die for the cause you believe in. Instead, Joe saves Deckard and reunites him with his daughter, getting heavily wounded while doing this. Joe is willing to die to reunite a family. For him, Deckard and his daughter are also his family. The most human thing to do is sacrifice yourself for your family. This is the perfect continuation of the theme that replicants have all the same emotional needs as humans. It's also a perfect continuation of the storyline. Rachel and Deckard running away together, hunted forever for wanting love and a family in the original, and Deckard finally reunited with his daughter in the sequel. One of the best things about the original is the Blade Runner universe and its level of detail. Both Ridley Scott and Hampton Fancher were inspired by the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which the original Blade Runner film is based on. Ridley Scott said this universe could be the Alien universe. It has inspired so many films, books and games, and even has its own genre, cyberpunk. In 2049, we are 30 years into the future of the original, in Southern California, also where the original is set. The world has evolved in these 30 years, and we see this evolution in all the details and in the backstory. There's now another powerful company making replicants, also controlling the food supply, headed by one man, Wallace. The environmental catastrophe has accelerated. There are no trees, no grass, very few real animals, and they're very expensive. There's farming, but we only see farming for maggots. It's perpetually cold, overcast and snowy in Southern California. Obviously something is seriously wrong. There's a huge seawall, probably to protect against rising sea levels. Society has also evolved, especially regarding replicants. More and more are being created by Wallace because it's said they now obey humans. The older models are being retired by replicants working for the police, Blade Runners. There is a baseline test for these replicants because society still does not trust them. Humans are scared and there's a fear of a replicant rebellion, and the replicants have organized themselves into an underground movement. There are 3 short films which go the details of what happened in the Blade Runner universe between the time of the original and 2049. These are Blade Runner Blackout 2022, 2036 Nexus Dawn, 2048 Nowhere to Run. There are also small details in 2049 which fans of the original will recognize. The spinner car is the same but advanced 30 years. We have personal drones and holograms which all play into the story. Blade Runner 2049 is packed with Easter eggs which reference the original and even the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. One Easter egg which references the book is when Joe is looking for the origin of the wooden horse and goes to Dr. Badger to get it analysed. Dr. Badger says he can get a horse or a goat for him. Goats are not mentioned anywhere else in the film or in the original. This references the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep because buying animals is a big part of that story. In the book, Deckard buys a goat and keeps it on his rooftop with the money he gets from taking out replicants. Rachel then throws the goat off the roof. Again, I have to mention the visuals. They're so iconic in the original. The sequel brought us more of the same with amazing attention to detail. With the level of quality of the visuals, I think the ratio of 2049 is perfect. If it had the same visual quality, the same soundtrack, I would watch it if it was 303 minutes long, because I'm a fan of the Blade Runner universe. All of these details weren't cut from the film and made it long, much longer than big box office successes. And this is one of the biggest arguments for saying this is not one of the best films of all time. However, everything that makes this film long, the backstory references, the Easter eggs, the time taken in the plot, may make it the best sequel ever. Thanks for watching.